So we can just start with that at-large discussion, I think. So the at-large seat, as we know, very beloved city council members. The city of Detroit used to have nothing but at-large members. So the at-large seat and what is represented in moving forward, we really got to think of the administrations of Mary Waters and Coleman Young the second as well. So Mary Waters moving forward with a whole lot in resident rights. We
Yes.
think about what's happening with actually a commission on behalf of renters. And that is so many discussions moving forward with that. And then Coleman Young, Coleman Young II is a very beloved city council member through our community with those relationships. What makes this very interesting is Janae Ayers had that seat before.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to see someone who, in two of these races, we have someone who lost their seat in the 2021 race going up against the person who replaced them. Or in Janae's case, two people who I guess you could say replaced her to some degree. You have a little bit more memory of when it was all at-large council members. Tell me, do Mary Waters and Coleman kind of resemble what council's makeup was like before we did council by district?
It's so interesting. This goes into the interview I had with James Tate not too long ago, where he was speaking about coming into council with the at-large seat and looking at it throughout the city. And he was saying it's more beloved to be in the district. I'm still a little up in the air. I think that, as I had in that interview on Detroit is Different, and I urge people to check the archives of that interview where you get to hear from James Tate himself talking about it. But at large, I felt that it was more of a pulse where you had a body of all these 9 people that could address whatever was happening throughout the city. And this scope, especially when it came to voting on certain things in districts throughout the whole city, is going beyond that. Right now, in district, we're relying on more so who that council member is and their relationships with the city and the residents over there and the businesses over there. So it's whole different worlds that are being brought to the table based upon where you're from. I was actually more of a fan of at-large, I personally think. I think that at-large gave more of that idea of what's happening when I think of what the council does. That's the ordinances, the resolutions, and making sure that the purse strings of the city are tight and definitely being looked at. And that's something that Janae is standing on. Janae's like, this is really what I want to monitor. This is what I want to look at. And this is where I want to be. So at large now is really a seat that I think it is two different worlds, even from what is represented. I think that it's great to see Mary Waters and Coleman Young throughout the city in many different districts, because you will see them more often than sometimes you may see your council members, depending upon what district you're in and depending upon what's going on. But those relationships really run deep, and they have poured in through that. So I think the at-large seat now is that extra point of emphasis for a lot of community groups and residents to know that, like, okay, let me get these 3 people, meaning who is in my district and the 2 at-large seats on whatever this issue is. If it were how it was before, where you got the 9, in some ways, I think that some interest as far as like really moving hard agendas forward, and hard agenda issues could be something like what will happen with young people and the curfew, and more so like what funding can be given to recreation centers so that it can be looked at throughout, as opposed to it's like, okay, that rec center is in your neighborhood. What about the rec center in my neighborhood? It kind of becomes a little bit of a versus attitude. And this is just a perspective, not just what I'm saying. This is what some people are actually saying when I interact with them. I'm sure you've heard a little bit of this too.
Yeah, and particularly from some of the older voters, not just in the past election for the primary, but also in the previous election in 2021. I heard a lot of people talking about how there was this idea when they decided to do council by district, which we've had since, 2012, I think, 2012 or 2013. The idea that, an individual council person could take care of their area of the city is what people kind of thought the idea was. And what we really started to see, especially when Duggan introduced district managers, that is kind of the role that a lot of people wanted to see council play when they moved to doing it by district, as opposed to the role that they do play, which is legislation, which is policy, ordinances, the rules around how governing works here.
And you've done, if anybody's catching up and watching, a whole lot of the tutorials and lessons that you're giving on Bridge Detroit. So you need to follow the Bridge Detroit, all of the socials, because you're getting the lessons and you're giving the lessons. And this is a strong mayor city. I don't even think most people have an idea to know the bounds in which what the mayor controls. Even if you check the Detroit Next episode where Ken Cockrell Jr. is talking about, like, okay, you're stepping into an office where thousands of employees, you're now leading as the CEO of the city. And I think to really empower those districts the right way, the way people look at what city council does, it's going to take some executive action. And what that looks like in this body, I have no idea what that could be.